Hi, everybody. Welcome to another Prog Report Top 5 podcast. This is Roie Avin. We have a great episode for you today, a really special episode. Very excited about it. Of course, if you've missed any back episodes, they're all available on progreport.com. You can download the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Podbean. Some are available on YouTube. And as always, follow us on Facebook, at The Prog Report on Twitter, and also on Instagram. Also, I want to mention we just put up some new shirts on the progreport.com website store. And also, if you haven't had a chance yet, there's still copies available of the Essential Modern Progressive Rock Albums book, which includes a bunch of albums by Dream Theater and a number of other great bands. So please check that out. So I'm really excited to introduce two great guests for this podcast that we have, the top 5 prog instrumentals. And I can't think of two better people really to have on this one than from Dream Theater. I'd like to welcome Mr. John Petrucci.
Hello. How you doing, Roy?
All right. Thanks, man. And Mr. Jordan Rudess.
Hello, Roy. Good to be here.
Thank you, guys. Last time we spoke was actually when I got this amazing chance to be up at the studio in New York with you guys where you were recording the new album. That interview is online. Anybody who goes on YouTube, it's called it's Dream Theater Interview at the Studio, and there's 3 parts. So, but that was really incredibly months ago. That was back in September, and the album was just about done recording. I think James was still singing, and you hadn't gone through mixing and stuff. So I'm really curious to get your thoughts on it now that it's done.
Yeah.
Are you excited and happy with how it came out? Is it what you wished it would be?
Totally. I think it came out exactly the way we all sort of hoped it would. You know, it sounds like what we sound like when we all get together and have fun and play and write. And we recorded it the way we envisioned it, you know, to have this big, raw, live kind of, you know, organic sound. And so, yeah, couldn't be happier. And it's exciting now because we did start to release a couple of the songs. And so we're starting to get some feedback, which is always fun to finally get some interaction. Yeah.
Well, I'm curious about that because that's always sort of scary for any artist when you finally put your work out there and you start to see the comments on YouTube or something. So do you pay attention to that, or do you try not to?
I was just reading the comments this morning, actually. Like sometimes I'm reading them going, why am I reading these? But you know, it's so predictable. First of all, nowadays, everybody's a critic. Everybody thinks that they're professional. So you get that whole attitude thing. And, you know, they all fight amongst each other. And, you know, when you're, I don't know, like Dream Theater has some of the most passionate fans in the world, so everybody really has something to say. So, but you know, you have to kind of take it to an extent with a grain of salt. But I think that, you know, it's fun because it seems like people are really into these songs and they're energized and they're feeling the spirit of what we did. And, you know, so there's definitely a lot of positivity there to enjoy if you're going to read them, and, you know, the other stuff too. So you have to have somewhat thick skin just to be able to, get through.
Well, some of them are funny. I mean, overall, I've sort of taken a look and I feel like it's been really positive. The new song that actually is out today while we're recording this is Fall Into the Light, which is, I mean, you can't get any more Dream Theater than that for me. But, you know, and I think the response has been overly positive from what I could tell. But there are those funny comments where it's like, I really don't like that keyboard sound between minute 240 and 246. You know, you get like those type of things, which are just hilarious to me.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a funny world we live in because, like, I get, you know, why people fell in love with a band for the first time, what their reasons were. You know, as a fan of bands, like, you know, I'll even have these thoughts where, you know, it'll never be as good as this record that came out, you know, at this point. But even still, it doesn't compel me to go on that band's site and then
Right.
Right.
Criticize everything. So that part I don't get. Like, I get the passion about music. I get having an opinion. It's all good. It's all great. And I love the positivity that you said, we're seeing. I think that's fantastic. I don't, and maybe it's just me, because people are like this with politicians, with movies, with sports. I don't understand the need to have to like go on those people's sites and like criticize.
It gives them power.
I guess I don't understand like what you get out of that.
Everybody is a professional critic. They become empowered. They've got a voice as if it's going to have some special meaning, and I think that's what they do. And they're from the generation where they're so like involved, and they can get so close to us, and they probably even know that we're looking at these comments. So that is power in a way.
Yeah.
So I think that's where that's coming from.
Yeah, you're right, Jordan. And
hard to understand because neither of us would do that, even if we were part of this, generation, and we grew up with this stuff. But I don't know; it's definitely a weird headspace.
Even like if I don't like a feature on my iPhone, I don't go on the Apple site and start.
I just called Tim Cook and complained directly.
Right? Yeah, you could. That's funny.
Probably have no reason to. You gotta like, and we're really conscious of this. It's like it comes down to the art that you make and your relationships and the music you make together, and it's like. That's the most important thing. And if you're having fun and feeling great about it and doing what you love to do together as a band, that's what's the most important thing. And then, when you put it out there, then whatever happens, happens. But, if it starts to come from another place where you're so worried about what this one or that one will think or what somebody said, then it just becomes very ingenuous. It's not a good space to be in,
No, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about in recording and testing a mix and stuff. I'm always curious about, do you print a CD or put it on your iPhone, I guess, and do like a car test, like old school style, to listen to how it sounds? Or how do you decide when it's finally done for you? What's the barometer?
Well, we listen, between all of us in the band, we try to listen to the music in every possible way with different sets of headphones,
Right.
within our cars, with whatever speakers are possible. And, we all have our opinions in our group, So.
I mean, the mix on this album is incredible. The production is possibly as good as any album you've ever had. And I have to tell you, I got a chance to hear a couple of songs in early demo form, right, when we were up there at the studio, and I never got a chance to tell you about having to listen to the final product. And man, it's a kick-ass album, and I'm of course I may come off biased a little bit on that, but it's perfect. Every song is great. The production is amazing. I as a fan, I mean, I have to tell you, it's awesome.
That's
Great
so
job.
nice to hear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, there's a good comment for you.
We appreciate it.
Are you guys close to getting into rehearsing yet? Is that already begun for the tour and stuff?
Not yet. We still have a little bit of time, but the tour preparation has been in motion for a while now. So, anything from our set design to the song choices to securing crew, travel, all that stuff has been happening. But as far as rehearsing, unless people are just, personally rehearsing, which starts.
Yeah, we know that John Mayung is practicing as we speak right now in his basement.
Yeah. He was practicing every minute that we weren't talking, and at the studio he had his bass and he was playing. I remember that. That's how he always is. That's funny.
He's a great practicer. I'm actually starting to make the sounds, make the live sounds on my instruments for the tour. I've got to get a good head start on that because sometimes it gets fairly involved.
Yeah.
So that process has begun.
Our writing director is programming as we speak as well, and our video content creator has been working hard for the last several months. So yeah, it's a process.
Right.
Short of the band just actually getting together and rehearsing the songs.
That's the easy part, right?
Started a while ago, yeah.
By that point, we'll all know them, and we'll come in, we'll play, and we're just going to put everything together.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, a good portion of the new album is going to be live. Is that you going to play a few of the songs, the whole thing? Where are you thinking?
We'll play a few of the songs. We're not going to play the whole thing, because we're doing an evening we have 2 sets, and the second, of course, people might know this by now, but the second set is celebrating Scenes from a Memory in its entirety. So the first set, we want to certainly play some of the newer songs, but we want to feature some older songs as well. So it'll be a little bit of a mix.
Nice. And I wanted to ask about, lastly, with some of the festivals you guys are doing that are lined up, those are shorter. So would those be obviously not Scenes from Memory, just a general mix of songs, a couple of new ones, that type of thing?
Exactly. We haven't put that together yet, but that's going to be the nature of it.
All right. I might have some more questions about the album coming up, but for anybody else that is listening, the new songs, there's 2 new songs out. Untethered Angel came out a little while back. Fall Into the Light is out now. Album comes out February 22nd. Distance Over Time. Definitely get it. All right. So here's, I'll give you the rundown on the top 5. We're going to do prog instrumentals. We'll count them down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We did not discuss which ones we were going to go with, so no idea what anyone's going to pick. And there's no real rules or anything. John, I'm going to give you the floor to go first, so why don't you go with what your number 5 prog instrumental is?
Oh, boy. Well, I was starting to think about this when I learned of what we were going to be talking about, and a lot of like the instrumental influences on me are largely by the guitar players that that I was influenced by.
Sure.
And when I thought about is it prog or not, or trying to think of prog bands, like that you might immediately go to, like what's a prog band? Genesis, you know what I mean? Like I kind of couldn't wrap my head around that. So as I started to think about it a little deeper and think about some of those guitar players, I kind of went with this first one. I went back in time to when I first got turned on to Return to Forever, and I just was listening to this album Romantic Warrior for just over and over and over and over and over, because a friend had turned me on to Al Di Meola, and then I got into the whole fusion thing, Chick Corea, and I got this record with Stanley Clarke and Di Meola and Chick Corea and Lenny White, and it's just like this insane instrumental, fusion-y, shredding music. Yeah,
that works. I mean, that absolutely.
It's crazy. So there's a song on it. It's pretty pompous, but it's called "Duel of the Jester and the Tyrant."
That's very prog.
Right, so part 1 and part 2, so you can see the prog influence on Dream Theater. But it's from the Romantic Warrior. It's from the Romantic Warrior record by Return to Forever, and it's just it's just crazy playing and soloing, and it's experimental and jamming, and the bass soloing is like insane on it. What Stanley Clarke is doing, it's just wacky stuff. It reminds me of like the Berkeley days when I was there. I mean, it came out in like '76, so when I was a kid, but I just remember like being at Berkeley and listening to this and people being so into this stuff.
That's very cool. Not familiar with that one. I'm gonna have to check that out. I mean, I know the band and I know the players. The song doesn't ring a bell for me. But
Yeah,
with that title,
it's wacky. The title is so like Dream Theater, Duel of Justice.
That's right.
Part 1 and Part 2.
Right.
It's so pompous.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's kick-ass. All right, Jordan, what's your number 5?
I think we'll start with the band Refugee, and the song is called Papillon. So Refugee, if you're not familiar, was a band with Patrick Moraz as the keyboard player.
Yeah.
And the guys who were formerly in the Nice that kind of came and joined him. And this was a really important album to me because it was around the time that I heard this around the time that I was still playing a lot of classical music and, thinking about whether I wanted to continue as a classical pianist or not. And I kind of heard this, and I heard Patrick Moraz play, and he was my biggest influence as far as using the pitch wheel, expressing leads and things like that. And it kind of blew my mind. And this particular song is the Papillon is the song that starts the album, and it's got some really adventurous keyboards on it. Patrick Moraz was probably the most, in many ways, maybe not the most, but a super adventurous, risk-taking keyboard player.
Yeah.
And, he just did some wonderful stuff, and it's a great album. And it's too bad we can't pick a song with vocals, because the one song that really did change my life was the song Someday, which had this Minimoog keyboard solo on it, which was the reason I, started to bend pitch and get into that whole world of possibilities.
I do know that album. Now, they only had the one album, right? The band.
Right. And they also had a live album. It's kind of hard to find.
I don't know that album.
Yeah, I got to turn you on to it. It's really hard to find. I was looking for it like on iTunes and Spotify. I didn't really see it anywhere. I happen to have it.
No, I think it's just on YouTube somewhere.
So anybody who wants to check it out, I guess you have to go to YouTube and just type in Refugee, maybe Patrick Moraz, and it'll come up. And again, the song is Papillon. It's really very cool.
Yeah, that's kick-ass stuff too as well. Okay, my number 5, you guys are definitely familiar with. You were talking about, John, about guitarists, and I was trying to figure out a way to include this one guitarist who is one of my favorites. I think he's one of yours as well, and that's Steve Morse. And I really like the Steve Morse band stuff, but I thought, well, that maybe is borderline prog, even though for me it's all the same, shredding crazy musical stuff. But I figured I'd go more Dixie Dregs. And
I wonder if you picked one of mine, because I have a Dixie Dregs song on my list.
It could be. That's okay. So I went with Odyssey.
Oh, nice.
Oh, I was thinking of that too. I didn't make it to my list. I was kind of feeling funny about choosing something that I was involved with, but
right. So I know you guys did the cover on the Black Clouds album, and as much as I love the Dixie Dregs stuff, I like the stuff that was more like this style.
Yeah.
So some of the stuff they did was kind of I guess maybe Dixie-ish, for lack of a better word.
They did. They did a lot of bluegrass stuff and some more rock and roll stuff, country. So it spanned, but they did have this. I couldn't agree more with you. I think they totally define the sound of prog. I mean, the whole instrumentation, guitar, keyboards, bass, violin. It's like, and especially in a song like Odyssey, when they're going in that direction. What's more proggy than that?
Yeah, absolutely. He has this specific kind of sweeping sound that he does when he plays that is totally unique to just him.
Yeah,
and I just love the way he plays. That's another one of my heroes. So I had to wedge him in here somewhere. But
I couldn't agree more.
So and that's from the What If album.
Right.
I think their third album. So, John, you're number 4.
My number 4, I'm going to go from something that was done in the 70s to something that's more modern. And it's, sometimes when you think about like prog and where it started and where it's gone, it's really, really, really interesting. Even when Dream Theater first started, it was so different because we were so separated from that period of the 70s where it was like so big. In the 90s, we were kind of on our own with that. But, fast forward and you have all these younger musicians being influenced. And I had this young man with me on my guitar camp, Tosin Abasi.
Yeah.
Of course, when the first Animals as Leaders album came out, it was 2009. It's just like mind-blowing stuff. And he played one of the songs at my camp from that record. And I was like, what the hell is the matter with you, man? You're like out of your mind. So the song Tempting Time from the first Animals as Leaders record, which is, it's all Tosin, but it's a different kind of prog, it's obviously instrumental, but it's like fast forward to, the world of hyper technique as far as guitar is concerned, and crazy syncopation, odd times, and tapping, and even kind of strange harmonic departures. That's like an eerie kind of dark vibe. So really, really proggy in a very different way, but definitely more towards the technical and sort of out of this world side.
Are you ever blown away by the success a band like that has had? Because that's, I think it's well deserved, but it confuses me sometimes because they have a younger audience, they sell out clubs and decent sized venues, and their albums debut in the Billboard charts. And I'm like, it's the most complicated music out there.
Is, yeah.
And I don't know how they've been able to achieve it, but I think it's amazing.
I have a theory. There was a crossover point. Video games have been around for a long time, and there's a whole thing with young people about like you're the best if you reach the high level or beat the game.
Yeah.
And like when Rock Band came out,
right,
all of a sudden it's like if you could play the Dream Theater song or the Dragon Force song, then you were the best. And it like did this weird crossover where like the more technical music appealed to the younger generation because it's this like sort of challenge. And it makes sense now that a band like Animals as Leaders and a lot of different more modern, very technical prog bands and the metal thing, it makes sense to me why that caught on and is popular. And I love it. I love that there's such a scene because again it's way different than when we started. There wasn't a scene.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and they're not getting radio, and they're not even trying. It's instrumental prog.
Yeah, so the people there really appreciate what they're doing, and they're there because they love the music and they, value the, what's going on technically, and it's a more sort of heady thing, and it's just really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have something to add to that, which is that I think that it's interesting to me to kind of see the way that the world of the electric guitar continues to kind of evolve. It's very different than any other instrument from my perspective. I just see it as this thing that constantly is changing, and there's so much push to kind of keep accelerating it and keep getting like better, more advanced. It's partly because of all the videos that are out, all the access to media that that whole art form moves so quickly. I get you could say the same thing about other instruments, but it's not as much.
That's why I was
I don't think that Tosin Abasi could exist, like in pretty much any other form. He's just, like a guitar freak. It's just like ridiculous. So I just think that instrument has evolved so much, and people just enjoy that. The electric guitar has its place in the musical universe, and that's part of the reason that it has the popularity that it does. Because people are really interested to see what are you going to do on the guitar next.
I know. So, accelerating by leaps and bounds. You're absolutely
right.
Yeah, and that's why when people say like no one's out there playing guitar anymore or rock is dead, it's like no, you're just looking in the wrong places.
Right.
Absolutely. It couldn't be less.
Yeah.
All right, Jordan, that's you're number 4.
Okay, so I think for my number 4, I'm going to go with also a new band that maybe some people have not heard of, but I'm very aware of, and they're called Special Providence.
I know those
It's
guys.
a band out of Hungary, and they're all an all-instrumental band, and the song that I'm choosing is called Distant Knowledge. I think it's a good representation of where they're coming from. First of all, they're really all amazing players, and they can go from the whole like gent kind of style into fusion to jazz, and they do it all with this kind of intensity that I really, really love. And they mix a lot of cool rhythms. It reminds me sometimes of like older Dream Theater, where like the drums will just kind of like play around the groove or the beat that the rest of the band is playing in. And, the tones are awesome. The keyboard, another reason I love this song and I love the band is because the keyboard player, Zsolt, his name is really awesome too. He's got a really great mix of technique and kind of fusion-y chops that mixes really well. So if people haven't heard that song and that band, you definitely got to check it out because it's really pretty unique.
Yeah, we've I think we've reported a little bit about them on the website, on the Prog Report website before, and that's a good newer band for sure, definitely
doing cool stuff.
All right, I'm going. Okay, so I'm going to be the one to go back old school, I guess, and probably the most obvious choice, I think, but I'm going to go Rush YYZ. Maybe it's low on my list, I don't know, but I feel like you got to go Rush if you're doing one of these lists. This is the song that I don't know. Maybe Livia Strangiato's maybe arguably the better instrumental, but I always sort of liked this one because of the kind of metal vibe that it has, and the more modern production and the riff and the whole thing, and they're able to do it all in whatever the song is, 5-6 minutes. What can you say about it? It's complete genius.
Yeah, that's one of again. It's tough not to pick that one. That's like one of the classics, and one of the cool things about that one is it's very theme based, as a song. Some of the other like sort of complex prog or the older stuff is like very, especially on the more fusion end, it's more jamming and stuff like this. And YYZ has like it features all the instrumentalists, but it's done in the form of a song where there's noticeable hook and bridge, and it's really interesting the way they did it. But yeah, that's like one of the best of all time. Couldn't agree more.
Your cat is like chiming in the background, making that really.
I know. Sorry about that.
Is that what that is? It's a cat. Okay.
Great sound. I remember that. That's right.
She either agrees or disagrees. We don't know.
Adding flavor to the conversation.
Yeah.
right. Okay, we're back to you, John. You're number 3.
I'm going to go in a slightly different direction. This is a band that, like, I consider them progressive, and it definitely contributes to a big side of who Dream Theater is as far as sound influence, but it would be Metallica. And, of course, on the Master of Puppets record, they had Orion, which was their instrumental. And
I almost had that. That was on my list of songs.
And it's funny, because you don't think of like metal bands necessarily having instrumentals, and I love that they put it on such an incredible record. And of course, all of Cliff Burton's work is amazing on that. But it's a great example of just like them doing their thing and developing a very distinct sound. And it has lots of different feels and changes and twists. And that was one for me. I think about some of the instrumentals that Dream Theater has written, and I'd be lying if I said that the Metallica influence hasn't played a part on so many of the more driving, heavier sections, or even some of the more melodic sections. That's a big one.
Yeah, I mean, I've always felt that Dream Theater was able to sort of take what Metallica and fuse it with Yes and Genesis. And if I'm explaining it to someone who has no clue about what you guys are, I find this almost the easiest way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Me too.
But the Master of Puppets is a masterpiece. That's my favorite Metallica album. After that, it's hit or miss for me, really. But that album is close to just being a prog album. It's just metal.
Right. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
The song structures, the song lengths, it's total prog. It's just, it's in the metal way.
Very cool. Love it. Jordan, number 3.
For number 3, I'm going to choose the band Kansas and a song called Spider. The song is, I don't know if you guys know the song. It's a very short.
I don't know that one.
It's a very short and to the point tune, but actually it's called The Spider, I should say, would be correct. It's really short and concise, but it's so aggressive, and it's totally classic Kansas. It's got this driving organ that kind of leads it, and of course, the violin and the guitar are mixed in as Kansas does it. But what's really cool about it, it's really adventurous. You go back and you listen to this song, you go, holy shit, like these guys are doing like some really serious prog. They're a great, great band. So for some reason, like sometimes I'll, if I'm thinking about my favorite prog bands, they don't really come to my mind right away. But then when I give it more thought, like to do this, I was going back and saying, well, what instrumentals really are cool and meaningful and that I really love, and this is definitely one of them. Kind of like harmonically, it's a little bit like from the Dregsy kind of school. They share that approach of using a lot of kind of major chords over different roots, and it's kind of like a very American sound that they helped to develop in prog. So I love that. it's definitely worth hearing for anybody who wants to hear like some really classic kind of keyboard focused, progressive rock.
Always good. And Point of No Return is
Right.
a monster album.
That's it. Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
Okay, yeah, I'm going around that same era with my number 3 with Genesis, Los Endos.
Oh, good.
One of my all-time favorite bands, one of their great albums. I'm a huge fan of Steve Hackett as a guitar player, and really all the guys. I mean, but I think Phil Collins as a drummer is always underappreciated to me. I think he's an incredible drummer, and people that don't know him for that and only know him for the 80s hits, don't recognize that. But his playing on that song is amazing. The way they incorporate the different themes from the album, bringing back stuff like Squonk and all of that into that song, just great. Did you guys ever get a chance to see Genesis live when, either with Peter or after?
I never did. No.
Yeah, I saw them a bunch of times, but not on the Peter Gabriel day, which I'm sad about. But once Phil Collins, Trick of the Tail is probably one of my all-time favorite albums. So that was almost kind of on my list as well. But yeah, huge influence. I'm a big student of the Tony Banks School of Harmony, and I just think that he had such a great. There's a few keyboardists, composers out there. Well, not only keyboardists, guitarists too. That had a really important, unique sense of harmony that I kind of like study and fill my ears and my head with. And Tony Banks is definitely one of them. And that album was a huge influence. And I also love that song. And they were great live, really great. And Phil Collins, what an amazing drummer, just incredible.
Jordan, back then you had keyboards were really a lead instrument where the guys were famous, Tony Banks and Keith Emerson and some of these guys, and they had unique sounds. And now that's less so, right? I think, you're maybe the most well known of the current kind of guys. Is that what do you think the change was there?
Well, I think nowadays, the prog metal, is kind of a bigger thing than just like, progressive rock itself. That's even a little bit more underground, or that's,
everybody wants to be a guitar player.
That's right. It's cooler.
Right, totally. I just think that, if you search, there's tons of bands doing cool things with keyboards, but most, a lot of great keyboard players are more found in the movie scoring business, that kind of thing, and composing, doing things. I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay, John, you're number 2.
Wow, we're up to number 2 already.
Yeah, this thing flies.
Flying through.
Oh my goodness, I'm not sure then. I guess it would be it'd be wrong not to pick a Dixie Drag song. I know you already did.
Yeah, go ahead.
But there couldn't be a more blatant influence personally than them. So I'm thinking about the Dregs of the Earth record, which came out in 1980. This song called "I'm Freaking Out." And I just always love when they play. I saw them play live a lot of times, and I always look forward to them playing that. And the lineup on that record, Steve Morse, Andy West, Alan Sloan, Rod Morgenstein, T. Lavitz, a lot of people consider that like the classic,
right?
Dixie Dregs lineup. And there's so many cool songs to choose, but that song, "I'm Freaking Out," that is as proggy as it gets.
Jordan, you played with them, right, for a brief period?
Did, yeah. It was amazing. I remember the first time I had seen the Dregs in New York City, and I watched. I was just watching the band, and I was thinking the whole time, like, man, that drummer. One day it would be so great to play music with him. But I thought at that point I really didn't have much going on, and it was a total dream. And of course, that dream came true, which was amazing. But Rod, his drumming is so unbelievable. It's just like one of my very, very favorite drummers. So that was a big dream of mine. And then I got the offer to play in the Dregs. So there was so much about that was really meaningful to me. And I really learned so much from Steve Morse as well. He's such a pro, and he's just this interesting, talented character that plays the guitar so beautifully. And he just taught me a lot about being in a band and, things like, okay, when somebody's playing a lead, it's time to like really lay back and like go simple and, and it just a lot of that kind of thing that I thought was very important then and now. And, wonderful musicians and cool people. It was a great experience. Yeah. It was about a year of touring with them.
That's great.
A lot of fun.
You guys on the new album didn't do an instrumental, so some albums you have done. What's the deciding factor there? It's just sort of you write one and it comes, or maybe you wrote one and decided not to use it.
I mean, we'll usually like decide ahead of time whether we want one on the record or not, and it's just whether. It's a funny thing. It's like it usually just feels right. And we'll just be together and be like, let's have an instrumental on this record. We haven't done one since blah, blah, blah. And we do it. This record, it didn't feel like the time to do it for whatever reason.
And it's not that on this record there's not extended instrumental sections when the record.
Well, that's the thing. There always are moments where 4 minutes of just music.
When the album finally comes out, people will be surprised, interested to hear some of these extended, really wild, instrumental sections that makes me really smile. So, I mean, from that point of view, we kind of satisfied our desire to like go nuts on our instrument and do what we do. We didn't need to have like an instrumental. And also we wanted to make this album, our concept behind it was to make it more kind of hard hitting, more concise, more song based. But, within that, there's definitely some very cool extensions to check out.
Well, actually, Jonah, we're up to you with your number 2 then, so you can.
So I think that it's important to bring King Crimson into the picture here. So I chose the song "Red." King Crimson is one of my all-time favorite bands. I see, Robert Fripp, and as an important composer of our generation, just somebody whose music kind of never goes out of style, which is an interesting thing, and very unique sound. Robert Fripp basically brought the tritone, into the rock world in a big way, and that song.
Yeah, it was Sabbath. I thought that was Tony Iommi who did that.
Right. The two of them together. So, but that song and that band
have King Crimson on the list for sure.
Yeah, King Crimson's really important.
Okay, here I'm going to go into the territory where, looks like maybe I'm, appeasing my guests, but these are what I would have picked regardless, just so you know. I'm going to go with, from Liquid Tension, my number 2 for Liquid Tension, number 2, When the Water Breaks.
Oh, we're flattered.
Which is one of my all-time favorite songs. It's my favorite song of the Liquid Tension stuff, although all of that stuff's amazing. I love the whole way, all the different motifs that you guys go through in that. And really, maybe my favorite part of it is the simplest part, the beginning.
Oh.
After the opening part, there's sort of, I guess you'd call it the verse, right? In the, where you're playing a melodic thing, John, and it's the most gorgeous solo there in the beginning, and I just love that. So that's always one that stuck with me. And I guess the title, from what we know, has a story that maybe not everybody knows. So
Well, yeah. When we were writing that record, my wife was very pregnant with our third child, who is now 20 years old. And I got the call, and the water broke. We were up in Millbrook at the time, writing and recording the record, and I raced back to Long Island for the birth of my daughter, Kiara. So, yeah.
That's cool.
The title came from. And it's so funny because, Jordan, you put that baby sample on the
Right. Marking the time. Absolutely. The other thing I remember about that song is that I was sitting at home one day and I really wanted to write a part that I thought was very like Dream Theater like. I hope I'm thinking of the section I'm thinking about is in that song. John, you'll tell me it's the one that goes.
Yeah, that's the opening riff, right? Yeah, that's.
So yeah, I just was like, okay, because I wasn't in Dream Theater, but I got off, but we don't have time to go into the whole story. But I was excited to work with John and Mike, and of course Tony Levin. But I wanted to write something that I thought was like almost like classic Dream Theater. So I spent some time crafting that riff, and I was nervous because I didn't know if the guys were really going to dig it or not. But I thought it was pretty cool, and I brought it in, and everybody smiled, and we ended up putting it in there and having a good time with it.
That's when we knew we wanted Jordan in the band.
There you go. When I could bring in the sound, when I could harness the sound.
Well, that is funny because I don't think a lot of people knew that you wrote that and John wasn't the one.
A lot of people have no idea what I write and what John writes. We should have a contest and everybody would lose.
Love that song and glad to talk about it there. Okay, John, you're number one.
Well, you kind of said it already, so it's a spoiler alert, but
okay,
my favorite band of all time is Rush, and Olivia Strangiato, just that's it, for so many reasons. I mean, you look at that song, just when you even look at it with all the parts, it's just so proggy, and it's such a big influence. It has a lot of fun to it, based on like a nightmare that Alex had or something like, so you see sort of the funny side of Rush and the guys, totally showcases all of them as instrumentalists. It is again, very theme based and has what quite possibly is one of the best guitar solos ever recorded. And the whole way that they put that on the record where the band breaks down into this really stripped down groove and Alex comes in with a bluesy thing and builds it to a frenzy. It's one of the greatest recorded moments ever. So yeah,
absolutely.
That's a big one.
All right, so we got two Rush songs. I did YYZ, so we're good. Two different songs. But I know you're a huge Rush fan. I figured that would be somewhere on your list, so I'm glad we were able to do that. Did Dream Theater ever cover that one?
We played like sections of it, but I don't think we didn't do like a full cover.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay. All right, Jordan, you're number one.
So I knew that between you guys, you would definitely cover Rush, so I didn't include any Rush in my list.
Right.
But I did need to include some Emerson, Lake and Palmer in the list.
There you go.
So the one that I chose is Carnival 9, The Second Impression.
Cool.
Keith Emerson, first of all, was probably my biggest influence in keyboard playing. The first time I heard him play, I was just really struck by the power, the kind of like the might of the sound of the keyboards and the way that he used his particular, harmonies, a lot of suspended chords built on fourths. And the organ sound that he had was amazing. And of course the synth too. So, tremendous influence to prog music in general. So I think it's important that they're included in the list. And Carnival 9 in its whole is a pretty much a masterpiece. The Second Impression is really, really cool. And that's what I chose because it's all instrumental and it features a lot of great piano playing, a lot of interesting time changes. I actually played that many years ago at a NAMM show. I covered it and I was thinking when I was going back and listening to it that I got to pick it up again because it's a really fun, great, kind of hard, piece to play. I did it with Rod Morgenstein. Back in the day, but a classic kind of keyboard based, prog song for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm glad we got ELP in there. That was another band I was looking through, what should I pick and who should I pick for mine, and so I'm glad you got them in there. I think we represented all the good bands.
Well, they were runner ups or ones that were almost equally important, but we can leave it at that.
Yeah. Well, of course, we left out one very important band for instrumentals, and so I'm going to include that band in my list, and that is Dream Theater. For my number one. And with all due respect to your choices, this is the best instrumental ever, and it is Dance of Eternity.
Oh, wow.
And so I have to include that in number one. And of course, the timing is actually coincidental with you guys going on tour and playing Scenes from Memory and everything. But, when I first heard that song, we were listening to it, me and a bunch of friends of mine. We did like a record release party in my house.
Cool.
And so we were listening to that, and there was a part where I guess just before the middle piano break that you do in there, Jordan.
Yeah.
I think, John, you do like a crazy sweep or something.
Yeah.
And I remember because my friend said, "Hold on a second, pause that and rewind."
What? What did I just hear?
What did he just do there?
That's funny.
Look, you guys don't need me to tell you, but that song's insane. I mean, talk about just, writing that and some of the different arrangements and what it took to finally get it to its final version.
Well, that was a very exciting time because, for me, I had just stepped out of the Liquid Tension sessions, just walked into the Dream Theater world where I thought things were going to be kind of like the same because it was just changing from the tall, bald bass player to the Asian guy with long hair. But of course, everything was very different. And it was just really exciting. It was a lot of energy in the air. The guys were really, I think, excited to have a big change in their musical lives. And I was excited because it was something that felt like it was just meant to be. So we had a lot of this energy kind of coming into it. And there was a lot of it that kind of came out in that song. So it kind of led to, this high energy kind of instrumental, and the whole album, in general had that spirit behind it.
You've played a lot of selections, over time on tour, but have you had to has it been a while? Have you had to go back and listen to the whole thing from beginning to end? And what does it mean to you now when you listen to it now before you go out on the road and play this whole thing?
I mean, we played it before, obviously since we toured on that record, but yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you have to kind of wrap your head around it, because some of the parts are pretty jolting. It's funny listening to it now. Like, I don't know if this happens to Jordan, but it still takes me back to like how it was written and where the parts came from and what we were thinking about. And I remember that song was kind of a blend of, we were trying to put themes that were originally in Metropolis Part 1 in there. And then we also were doing something which contributes to the instrumental sections in our music, to them being so angular and wacky and weird, where you don't know what the next thing is going to be, is going to bring. It's kind of like Space Mountain in Disney World. Like, you can't, it's in the dark, so you can't tell what's going to happen next.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we do that by literally taking ideas that have nothing to do with one another. And be like, yeah, I have this cool, wacky thing that I wrote. Let's put that in there. It's like you're making a soup. Let me
Master
try
soup.
right.
Right.
I wonder how that will taste. And then the challenge as songwriters is how you do that in such a way where it does sound musical. It does sound purposeful, even though it might throw you for a loop. There is a way that you have to connect those things, whether it's, having to do with the time signatures or rhythmically or harmonically, trying to figure out how to, like, this is something Jordan does so well. It's just trying to figure out how to, like, modulate into the right key to get to another section. So
I remember that song was a real opportunity to play around with some like interesting compositional techniques. There was definitely that element, like John said, of creating this soup of all these cool ideas. But there was also an element of that we really got into of like taking motifs and riffs. And we kind of explored this in Liquid Tension as well, where we take something that might exist in the high register, of an instrument or just the band sound, and then move it into the low register and see what we could put on top of it.
Right.
So there was a lot of that where, okay, let's take that riff. For me, it was a matter of let's put it in the left hand or in the bass and then compose something in the right hand. And also, the humorous thing that people always comment was the little honky tonk section that was on the piano.
Right.
And I was literally just having fun in the studio with the guys. I wasn't serious. I just wanted to make them laugh. So I took the riff that we were playing, was this really heavy kind of linear unison riff, and I just made it into a honky tonk thing, and everybody smiled. And I thought that would be the end of it, but somebody, maybe Mike Portnoy, said, "Oh, we got to put that in," and I was like, "Okay, cool." We'll put it in there.
Those are the parts that would always make me laugh when you're like, I can't. How are they throwing this in there and making it work?
And I think we kind of like were reminded, or we learned that in our serious prog or any serious prog, it's always great to have a little bit of humor. It really lightens things and allows people to enjoy. There's certain things that allow people to enjoy music more than other things. Like if a band is like too academic or technical, they could be amazing, but you tend not to totally like love it. But if music has a little bit of humor and it has melody and heart, then people are drawn to it. So it's one of the things that we're very conscious of and we enjoy, in Dream Theater, that I think helps to make our music something that the fans can really love.
Absolutely. Well, I think we talked about all the good bands, a ton of great songs. Guys, thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the first time getting to speak to you in the studio and do that. And then for you guys to come on and have a little fun here with me here. Really great. And I appreciate it so much.
Thanks, Roy. Good to be here with you.
And so again, man, and the new album just doesn't let up. It kicks off with Untethered Angel. And then from then on, song after song just will blow you away. Distance Over Time, February 22nd, comes out. The new song Fall Into the Light is out now, so check that out. And the tour, I want to say March, kicks off in March. And I think you guys are coming down my way, Florida, around April, so I'll be there.
Great.
and hopefully we can say hi. And guys, thanks again. Have a great tour. Everything that's coming along the way. I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you so much, Roy. This was a lot of fun.
It really was. Thanks, Roy. It's awesome.
All right, thanks.
All right.
Bye. See ya.
All right, take care.